question about politics, let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you an. When you are first trying to learn about it, and so I like to make myself available to people to answer their questions about politics in a place where there's not going to be any judgments or roasting or debating. And politics, it can sometimes feel like a different language where we're referring to people by their last names or referring to these like three-letter agencies, like, what's, I know it's a three-letter agency, but like, what's the NLRB? Actually, no, that is the three-letter agency. Never mind. With the Consumer Financial Protection Board, like, what the fuck does that do? USAID, like, what the fuck does that do? What's reconciliation? What's the filibuster? What's a continuing resolution? It's complicated, and people make it seem like it's not complicated. There's definitely like a learning curve for understanding this stuff, and so I like to make myself available to answer people's questions. And this isn't one of those shows where I yell at you if you have different political opinions than me. I'm not here to debate people or try to own people. I am just here to answer people's questions about politics. All right, what do we got here? Ask the president who I should bet on. Let's see here. Take the L says nobody cares what you think. I don't know. I get lots of questions on these live streams usually, so I think some people do. All right, so if you had any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you didn't vote. I don't care if you're further to the left than me. I don't care if you're further to the right than me. I am just here to answer good faith questions about politics. Maybe I get a little spicy if people get a little spicy to me, but I'm trying my best to just be as sober and sincere about answering people's political questions as I can. I know politics can be, let's see here. Woodsboro says, what are these tariffs for? So talking about the tariffs is weird. It's a little bit like, it's a moving target, because the tariffs are on, the tariffs are off. We have tariffs on this country. Now we only have tariffs on this country. We know, wait, there's tariffs on every country. It's really difficult. But the short version and the reality of the situation is that the tariffs are stupid and they're dumb. Trump likes tariffs because they are a mechanism for both making the 99% making their lives harder and making prices go up and making small businesses struggle. But also it's a mechanism for him to get bribes, basically. And he did this in his first administration, and he's doing it now, where companies can petition him to be exempted from the tariffs. So, if you give him $5 million, then he will exempt your company from the tariffs. It's that simple. But yeah, they're stupid. They're not going to be helpful to anybody in the 99%. It is just going to be good for him and people that are already rich. Alrighty, let's see here. Darian says thoughts on Obama. I liked Obama. Colin says, do you think Barron Trump will run one day? I sure hope not. I heard that isn't there reporting that he was doing like serial killer behavior, like mutilating animals and shit like that? So yeah, that dude's dangerous, I guess. Matthew says Trump is going after the media, judges, citizens, people with disabilities, and university. That is accurate, Matthew, and that is part of the reason why we should all be working towards getting Democrats elected in the midterms, because that is our only check on this rogue, illegal, unconstitutional administration. All right, so if you have any questions about politics, let's see here. Becoming Somebody says, is Donald Trump going to get a third term? It's difficult to say whether or not he gets it, but the fact that he's going to try is enough that people should just be voting for Democrats, because it is wildly unconstitutional. There is a reason why we have term limits, and it is to avoid further corrupting influences of power in our nation. Let's see here. Colin says, what is midterms? Midterm elections are what happen in between presidential elections. So presidential elections are every 4 years. Midterm elections happen every 2 years. There's also primaries, which is how the parties decide who's going to run in the general elections. And there are special elections, which are, if somebody gets like appointed to the president's cabinet, maybe there'll be like an election, just like in the middle of nowhere, where you just, oh my God, there's like a couple of months into an administration, now we got an election already, stuff like that. All right, thank you for your questions already, everybody. These have been really great so far. Saf Safar says, Israel or Palestine? I am for the citizens of both of those countries, and I'm against the governing bodies of both of those countries. Both Hamas and the Netanyahu government are guilty of war crimes, and I do not support either of those. Colin says, does midterms decide the Senate? Yes, midterms does decide the Senate. All right, great question so far, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Jared. I answer questions about politics, and I don't do debates. I don't roast people. I don't ridicule people. I am not here for making fun of people for not knowing things, and I'm also not here to yell at like Republicans for having their beliefs. I'm just here to answer good faith questions about politics, and I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if you're further to the left than me or further to the right than me. I believe in actually spreading correct narratives and making sure that people have an accurate idea of what is going on in politics. And I also want to make sure people have a place where they can learn about politics without fear of ridicule. I've definitely been made fun of for not knowing things about politics. Tyro Pillar, that is right. Round 2. Today is my day off on the road, and so I decided to see what would happen if I did a late afternoon stream as well. Samurai Destroyer, good to see you again. Sorry I got a little spicy with you last time I was on the stream. All right, let's see here. Daily Dad Rock for You says, why has the Democratic Party gone so downhill? Daily Dad, I don't think the Democratic Party has gone downhill. Now, this is something that I understand not a lot of people agree with me on, but for me, the image that people have of the Democratic Party is the product of a decades-long smear campaign organized by the billionaire class. It is kind of obvious when you know what to look for. It's a little bit like putting on the glasses in the movie They Live. But the fact of the matter is the Democrats have been playing a game that's been rigged against them for decades. They never get any credit for the good things they do. Republicans never get any blame for the bad things they do. And so it is my contention that people have the wrong ideas about the parties. They think that the Republican Party is better than it is, and they think the Democratic Party is worse than it is. And I'd be happy to go into details. Daily Dad Rock for you. If you have anything that you want me to go into more detail with. Let's see here. B. Braden says Republicans get no blame. Yes, that is accurate. B. Braden. Republicans crash the economy, and people still have an idea of them being more fiscally responsible. Republicans let 9/11 happen, and yet people view them as being the party of strong national security. At every opportunity, Republicans cut benefits for veterans, and they are still seen as the pro-military party. So yeah, Republicans never get any blame for the bad things that they do. Daryan says, elites have backed Democrats for decades. What are you on? That again is billionaire propaganda. 75% of all billionaire donations went to Republican candidates in the 2024 elections. But more than that, it just makes sense. Like, why would a billionaire support a Democrat unless for moral reasons? Because their bottom line gets fucking fatter when they support Republicans, because the Republican Party platform is cutting taxes for the billionaire class, cutting regulations for their corporations, cutting taxes for their corporations, creating subsidies for massively profitable corporations and shit like that. So most billionaires operate in self-interest, which is why they support Republicans and try their best to get them elected. They spend billions trying to get them elected. I would encourage you to read a book called Dark Money, which is basically all about how the billionaire class has been astroturfing the Republican Party and libertarian philosophies, since like the 1980s. Oh, excuse me. The few billionaires that do support Democrats, they do it out of a sense of moral obligation because they feel as though the system is rigged against the 99%. They have enough money and they want the power of the government to be used to make life more equitable and fair. Samurai Destroyer, I am not religious, though I was raised religious. I was raised Catholic. What school of philosophy do you subscribe to? I mean, the corporations can support Democrats for minimum wage increase, which can benefit the corporations more than the small businesses. I don't know how accurate that is, Samurai Destroyer, but let me get back to that one. As far as school of philosophy I subscribe to, I don't know if there's a name for the specific philosophy that I subscribe to. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. My name is Jarrett. I am here to answer your questions about politics. I don't get into fights with people. Sometimes I might get a little spicy. People get a little spicy to me in the comments. But, my goal here is just to answer good faith questions about politics, give people a more accurate idea of what's going on in our country, help people connect the dots between their vote and the things that are happening either right and wrong in their life. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I don't believe in making fun of people for not knowing things. And I don't care if you have different political opinions than me. I am not going to call you dumb or debate you or roast you or anything like that. So long as you ask a good faith question, you are free to be a part of this live stream, and I will do my best to give you a good faith answer. All right, Olarin the Red, good to see you again. What do we do if the Republicans refuse transition of power, midterms are rigged, manipulated? So they almost certainly will do that, Olarin the Red. And so it is the same thing it's the same levers of power that we currently have, which is organizing and recruiting and working together as a collective. If we sweep sweep the midterms, and win by overwhelming margins, then it will make it more difficult for them to shout voter fraud and legal challenges and things like that. Part of the reason why Trump was unsuccessful in overturning the 2020 election is because there were 3 different states that made up the win, and so it was, he would have had to, convince the Secretary of State of Georgia to quote unquote find him 11,000 votes. And also he would have had to do the same thing in Pennsylvania. And I forget what the 3rd state was, but yeah. So, we need to make them know that we will not put up with this shit. And that is by being an organized and activated citizenship that does a lot of protesting and boycotting and striking, and putting political pressure on our elected representatives, but mostly just winning by such a wide margin that any of their fuckery will be insufficient. Let's see here. Be honest, do you think the Democrats have gotten too radical? I don't, because there are plenty of people that believe that the Democrats have become too centrist and become too milquetoast, Daily Dad. The Democratic Party is a wide tent, and so we have people like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, and we also have people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. And personally, I think that's the way the Democratic Party should be. It should mirror the American populace. It's diversity of political opinions, the same way that it is a diversity of race, religions, ages, sexes, sexual orientation, and political philosophies. Sid Say It says, "Hey, Dem here. Do you think that Epstein victim actually unalived herself, or was it a setup?" I mean, she did put out a statement that said that she has no intentions of unaliving herself. So, that's the reason why you put out a statement like that, is to let people know that there is foul play if it looks like there is, not so. Let's see here. Energize Me One says the safety of our democracy comes down to who the military will obey, agree or disagree. I mean, that is one of the many levers of power that the government can use. But, countries have overthrown military dictatorships in the past. So the ultimate power lies in the people and its ability to organize and fight back. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Let's see here. User a bunch of numbers says, how can we get rid of the MAGA Nazis? So the best thing that we can do for affecting political change, and when I say that, I mean like not having an activated and organized far right wing in this country of like fascist sympathizers and shit like that, is political activism. The social media networks is where most people that we need to convince get their news, and social media networks are really easy to manipulate by people who have a lot of money. Additionally, they are owned by billionaires, and so they will flood their social media networks with tons of propaganda that makes it so that Republicans win elections and Democrats don't. The best antidote to that is talking to people in real life. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, and do your best to pull them out of any propaganda rabbit holes that they may have fallen into. And making and educating people about the dangers of social media and the importance of having a varied and eclectic news media diet. Mutt 101 says, are lobbyists a good thing? I mean, an argument could be made, but I think that the mechanism of lobbying has become so tainted with money over the past couple of decades that it's basically just a mechanism of corruption. And I think it needs significant reform, which again, the Democratic Party is the only party that's going to do that. Hannah says, how is being conservative a propaganda issue? So there's a big difference between being conservative and being MAGA, Hannah. But I do take your point, where I am on here, I'm a outspoken progressive, and I'm telling you that social media is lying to you about X, Y, and Z, and it is turning people into MAGA or conservative or like just non-voters and shit like that. So, do I believe that a person with conservative beliefs could be operating from a position of accuracy in their knowledge? Yeah, potentially. But the fact of the matter is that if somebody pays attention to the news and has an accurate idea of what's going on in our government, they tend to vote for Democratic politicians by a factor of 80 to 20. But because Democrats don't win elections by 80 to 20, it suggests that the issue is that there are a lot of people out there who are believing wrong things. And we have a lot of data to support that idea. If you poll people in swing states for why they voted the way they did, they will tell you things about Kamala Harris and Donald Trump that are just not accurate. And more often than not, the inaccuracy is in favor of the Republican Party and against the Democratic Party. So when I say that Republican politicians, and people that Republican politicians win elections through propaganda, there's a lot of data behind that, and there's a lot of science behind that, because when you talk to people in real life, you find that you have basically the similar priorities and and beliefs, but it is just their media environments that have told them that the best way to get the outcomes that they are looking for is to support candidates that are actively working against their best interests. And so they fall into culture war bullshit, or they just believe wrong things. So if you want me to get into more specifics on that, I can, Hannah. But yeah, there's a ton of data to back that up. That is not my opinion. That is basically fact. Let's see here. Samurai Destroyer, I do see you over there, but I got lots of comments happening over on TikTok, so I 100% will get to you, I promise. John says, was it legal to arrest those judges? That is actually an open question. I'm not a legal expert. There is a podcast that I listen to called Strict Scrutiny with three extremely smart law professors. And so I am waiting for them to give me the official breakdown. But from what it looks like, from my perspective right now, it looks like it's a very thin case, but it does look like a case. Now, did they need to be arrested? 100% not. They could have just gotten indicted. But the fact that they were put in cuffs, it means that it was an intimidation tactic. It means that it was the Trump administration telling judges, fucking play ball and do what we tell you to do, or we're going to be a massive pain in the ass to you and the people that you care about. All right, let's see here. Samurai Destroyer says, would you say you support the idea of utilitarianism philosophy? Well, tell me what you think that means, Samurai Destroyer. Let's see here. The corporations can support Democrats for minimum wage increase, which can benefit the corporations more than the small businesses. That's a theoretical argument, Samurai Destroyer, but we have actual evidence that giant corporations fight against minimum wage increases because what they want to do is have slave labor, basically. Like you see this in companies like Walmart, whose employees are so poorly paid that they have to go on food stamps. And, Walmart could decide to pay them more. They just don't. Walmart doesn't need a minimum wage increase to pay their workers more. They just decide not to because they can get away with it. So, it seems a little myopic that you're making this case that a minimum wage increase would be good for corporations and therefore they support Democrats when they do everything they can to fight minimum wage increases. I don't know if you're still there, but that is my answer to that. Good to see you, Irina. Thank you for being here. Ms. V says Trump is the best president ever just because he was not for having biological men in women's sports. That is inaccurate. That is also a statement. And so you're out of here. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but just ask a question, be part of the conversation. Flavius Belisarius says, thoughts on religion in schools. I do not think that it is a problem if a private institution wishes to be religious. But we have a doctrine of separation of church and state in this country, which means that if you have a publicly funded school, then it should be completely what's the word I'm looking for? Not religious. What's the word for not religious? I forget. Usually all over this word. I can't fucking remember what it is right now. But yeah, public institutions should not have any sort of religious bent or priority to them. Let's see here. Secular. Thank you. Non-secular. Thank you very much. Jesse Mern says, will Trump's treatment of the courts and judges come back to bite him? Potentially. Right now there is a war going on between the Trump administration trying to solidify and take over basically every branch of government. They want to have unified power over the government, which is antithetical to our founding documents. The whole idea of America is separation of power, checks and balances, so that we don't have things like a dictatorship. And the fact that Trump is trying to eliminate that should be a reason for everybody to try to vote for Democrats in the midterm elections so that we can have some some way to check this lawless and unconstitutional administration. So yeah, they are going to be the Trump administration is going to continue to push, and they're going to continue to do illegal things in order to try to intimidate people and install loyalists into positions of power. And it is up to people in positions of power, like judges, the same way that it is up to us, the citizens, to fight back against that. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Selfish says Republicans have a secret weapon. Just let liberals speak. Thank you, Rena. You're doing the Lord's work. Abel says, yet the lefties push the religion of Democrats. No, that's not true, Abel Sains. Also, that's not a question, so watch it or you're going to get blocked. Let's see here. Skylar says, this might actually be Joaquin Phoenix. Ooh, you think I look like Joaquin Phoenix? What a compliment. That is an attractive fellow. Glam says, did SCOTUS swear an oath to Trump? There is a theory that some of the right-wing judges did. I haven't seen any substantive reporting on that. All I've seen is judges saying extremely weird loyalty pledge-ish shit to Trump while on hot microphones and shit like that. But yeah, I think that all you need to do is look at their decisions and see that they are, wildly unlawful and just doing the work of Trump and the Republican Party. So whether or not they've actually sworn some sort of loyalty pledge to Trump, it doesn't really matter. They're acting like they have. Abel Sane says, I get blocked twice a day at least. And why do so many lefties have lisps? I mean, ask your mom, I guess. Let's see here. Username says, are you left, right, center socially? I'm left all the ways, baby. Colin, good to see you again. Do they teach U.S. students how U.S. politics works so they understand how to vote better? Civics used to be a cornerstone of the American education system, but it has been wildly defunded over the past couple of decades, and that was, I believe, intentional, so that's it would be easier to manipulate the voting population to elect right-wing politicians. User a bunch of numbers says, why are you left-wing? There's a lot of reasons why I'm left-wing. I pretty much agree with everything in the Democratic platform as far as protecting the environment, holding corporations and billionaires accountable for the laws that they break, doing something against gun violence, solving income inequality, worker protections, strengthening the unions and shit like that. But I think that the main crux of my belief in left-wing politics comes down to two factors. Climate change and trickle-down economics, where the Republican Party has been saying for decades that climate change is fake and trickle-down economics is going to make us all richer. And I can see with my own two eyes that both of those things are total bullshit. So if the Republican Party is lying about those things, which are blatantly obvious lies, then I believe that they're completely untrustworthy. And I believe that they're probably lying about everything. Sebastian5931 says, so holding Pelosi accountable for millions she earned. I don't know what you mean by that, but also if you have a problem with Nancy Pelosi doing insider trading, do you also have a problem with every Republican doing insider trading? Because they are. You know, Ted Cruz is doing insider trading. Josh Hawley's doing insider trading. Lauren Boebert's doing insider trading. Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing insider trading. So why is Nancy Pelosi the face of insider trading? Well, she did go out there and she said that she didn't think it was a problem that people in government were insider trading, which I do not think was the correct thing for her to do. And also, you know, the social media spheres are weaponized against Democratic politicians. So while she went out there and said that she thought this was a good thing, everybody was like, okay, sweet. Now we can all pin this on her, and the Republican Party can continue to insider trade, and people will think that it is a Democrat thing because of fucking Nancy Pelosi. The only party that has done anything to try to make it illegal for people in government to stop insider trading is the Democratic Party. You know, there've been some Republican bills, but they've gone basically nowhere. The Democratic bills have gone further than the Republican bills. The Democratic bills have had more co-sponsors. So yeah, you can miss me with that nonsense. All right. Rasmus says, "Are you a socialist or a communist?" I would be much more willing to either ascribe or not ascribe those labels to me if every human being did not have a different definition of what those words are. Some people believe that communism is like what the USSR system is, which is completely inaccurate. Some people believe that socialism is what Venezuela is, which is also completely inaccurate. So yeah, you know, if you can tell me what you think those words mean, then I'll tell you if I am those things. Charlie says, "Are you straight?" I am. Dragonian says, "You can't really stop them. They can just tell the family members." I don't know what you mean by that. Donnie says, "Let's not forget that Trump's buddies just made..." Oh, you're talking about insider trading. I mean, if you tell your family members, then that is still insider trading. And if, you know, Nancy Pelosi's cousin or Ted Cruz's nephew has a extremely well-timed stock trade, then that itself is illegal. You know, it has to be like 5 degrees of separation or some shit before people stop asking questions about it. Donnie says, "Let's not forget that Trump's buddies just made a hefty sum on his taking of the economy." Completely inaccurate. Sorry, completely accurate. Completely accurate. Sorry about that. Whitney, what's the primary reason you think Trump was voted in? Two things. Number one, there was incumbency bias. Every political party across the globe, whether they were left, right, or center, suffered electoral consequences in 2024 because people were mad about rising prices. So they just wanted to punish whoever was currently in charge, regardless of whether they were responsible for doing that thing or not. That's number one. But the biggest one is propaganda and misinformation, because the billionaire class is flooding social media and mainstream media with narratives that hurt the Democratic Party and help the Republican Party. And it is endemic. It is sinister. It is everywhere, and people just don't see it. It is bananas to me. The lies that people believe about the political parties because we are all plugged into these fucking social media propaganda machines that are just fucking drenching us with a fire hose of misinformation. So yeah, I think that we need to, if you know, if we want to make things better in this country, then we all have to be deputized to, you know, fix this by telling people that social media is inaccurate and by being informed citizens and talking to people in real life about what the real story is. Let's see here. Fart Knocker says, "Like this propaganda." That's not a question, and so you are out of here. Nothing I say on here is inaccurate propaganda. You can double check everything that I say. Oh no, I got no sound. Shit. Fuck, fuck, fuck. All right. Boo, boo, boo. Do I have sound now, everybody? I was told that I did not have any sound. So tell me, let me know, inform me. Or was that guy who said I didn't have any sound just trolling me? Let me know. Oh, you always had sound? That's fine. You know, it was successful. The troll worked, everybody. But now everybody can hear me just a little less well. So, so you know, wow, that guy really got me. You know, Supergirl says can't hear you. Okay, well, you know, I don't believe you. I couldn't hear you for a few seconds. All right, well, maybe that person was telling the truth then. We don't need to we don't need to go further down this rabbit hole, guys. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. Dan Blackwood, good to see you again. How does Pelosi equal rich elite to MAGA, but Trump equals everyman middle American hero? Propaganda and misinformation, my man. And I think you knew the answer to that question. You're on point. You know things. You're the MVP. Zach, how can you say this? Didn't Kamala outraise Trump 5-1 with $1 billion? That is inaccurate, Zach. I've seen the reporting on it, and it is extremely shadily written in a way that makes it seem like that is the case, but it's actually not the case. So first of all, let's take a look at this from the perspective of incentives. The billionaires are incentive to vote in Republican candidates because they get them more profits because they cut taxes for the billionaire class and they cut regulations for their businesses. And billionaires are by and large, self-interested, and so they're going to try to elect Republicans in order to make themselves richer and more powerful. But we also have the data on this, and that 75% of all billionaire donations went to Republican candidates in 2024. So if you look at that reporting that says that Kamala outraised Trump 5-1, it's very specific. It's like talking about a very specific kind of fundraising. It is specifically billionaires who came out and said, we are supporting Kamala Harris. And they were something like I forget the exact breakdown. It was something like 60 to 40 billionaires who came out and said they were supporting Kamala, but they only, that was only like 100 billionaires when there are over 1,000 just in America alone. So you got to kind of take the bird's eye view on that in order to get the more holistic perspective. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Mike McCully says lobbying is a bipartisan problem. That is accurate. But the Democratic Party is the only party that is trying to get the money out of politics and make lobbying less corrupt. Do Not Go Gently says, what do you think about Republican representative quoting Joseph Goebbels during a hearing on censorship? The Republican Party has been fascism and Nazi adjacent for a long time. The fascist wing has kind of been operating in the shadows for a while, and now they feel emboldened to come out into the sunlight. And I think that it is incumbent upon all of us to be clear-eyed about that and not shy away from the, similarities between what the Republican Party is currently doing and what fascist and authoritarian regimes have done throughout time. That includes the Nazi Party, but it also includes Vladimir Putin's Russia. It also includes Orban's Turkey. I believe it's Orban in Turkey, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Waldo, what's your opinion on the current administration legalizing certain forms of segregation? I am against it, and I think, for everybody that wants to make the argument that Republicans are not the party of racism and marginalizing, different demographics in this country, I think it's really difficult to make that argument when the Republican president is currently making it legal for companies to be segregated. Kate Miracle says, who do you see as our stronger candidate for 2028? Kate Miracle, thank you for the question, but I never answer that question because I'm trying to keep everybody focused on 2026. We have midterm elections coming up, and the survival of our country and the safety of its citizens depends on Democrats running the table in 2026. Gingerella says, do you think that AIPAC will forever have extreme influence over our government? No, because we have to do the work of electing politicians who will stand up to AIPAC. And we have to be aware when AIPAC is funding propaganda to convince us to not vote for the kind of politicians who aren't going to vote for them. AIPAC has already successfully ousted a number of strong progressive candidates in favor of more centrist ones who will do what AIPAC tells them to do. And the reason why those elections, why the progressives lost those elections is because AIPAC used their money extremely well and people believe the propaganda that they put out about them. So y'all got to stop doing that. And y'all have to join me in the fight of making sure that people recognize when they're being lied to and recognize what the real narratives are out there. Tyro Pillar says, did you ever figure out how to spell Papadopoulos' name? Wow, you read my book, Tyro. Did you like it? Let me know. Dahlia says, what can I do to make a difference? I don't like Trump. Excellent question, Dahlia. Okay, so here is, you'll hear me talk on this live stream about the work. Like, what is the work that we all have to do? And the bad news is that there's a lot of work to do. But the good news is that there's a lot of different kinds of work to do, so you can do the things that you want to do. And also, there are a lot of us out there. So the more people that do this work, the less work that we all have to do. So what is the work? The work right now is putting political pressure on elected representatives, especially if those representatives are Republican. The work right now is also talking to people in real life to make sure that they're not part of some propaganda rabbit holes. If you got somebody in your life who is MAGA curious or a centrist who believes that both parties are the same, it is up to you to disabuse them of those false narratives. It is up to you to make sure that the people in your life are not falling down propaganda rabbit holes on social media, that they know that the internet is lying to them, and that they need to have a more varied and eclectic, news media diet. There are already great organizations out there doing this work. Indivisible, Run for Something, Vote Save America. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just join those groups. But if you have gas in the tank and you want to do more, start a political action group, start calling your representatives every week, fucking camp out at their offices, man. But yeah, what we need to do is activate people and organize people and recruit people. We got to get as many people doing this work as humanly possible. We got to get as many people to vote for Democrats in the midterms as humanly possible. There are 85 million people who did not vote in 2024 who could have. Let's find all those voters and not only convince them to vote, but convince them to vote for Democrats at the very least. Maybe we can even get them to vote for progressive Democrats in the primary if that is something that you're into. Maybe you're more of a centrist Dem, so try to get them to vote for centrist Dems in the primary. That's not my vibe, that's not my flavor, but that's what primaries are for, is seeing what the populations of various states and districts prefer. But yeah, when the general election comes around, we got to get all those people to vote for Democrats. We got to run the table, because that is the only way that we get a substantive check on the Trump administration's currently unchecked power. So yeah, if anybody needs me to, go into more detail about that stuff, or you missed some of the things that I said because I talk really fast sometimes, send me a DM, email me through my website. I am happy to relay this information in excruciating detail for anybody that asks, because part of what I'm doing on here is just trying to find people to also do the work with me, because there's too much work just for me to do, guys. I'm tired. I'm old. I need assistance. Zach says, are you paid to say these lies, or is it just your hobby? Nobody pays me to do this, Zach, and I don't like being called a liar, so you're out of here. But you can pay me to do this stuff if you really like me and you think that what I'm doing is right. You can send gifts, you can subscribe, you can join my Patreon. You don't have to, because I do this stuff because I believe in the work, but you can if you want. Let's see here. What party are you? I'm a Democrat. Let's see here. LJF says, what party? Oh, I already answered that one. But it's John 7 says, why would they waste a vote on Democrats? And then a laughing emoji. So you're blocked also. That is not a good faith question. All right, scrolling down the bottom, Diego Vargas, good to see you again. Should we have higher standards when it comes to allowing people to vote? No, I think that we should make it easier for people to vote. Right now, the Republican Party does really well with voter suppression tactics. I think we need to reverse those. I think that we need to give people more time to vote. Early voting, vote by mail, all of that is fucking dope as hell. I, sincerely believe that it's not incumbent upon us to make sure that better people vote. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that everybody votes, and then also make everybody better by giving them actual information and investing in their education and shit like that. All right, scrolling down the bottom. Boom. Donald Gordon says, is an independent okay? I'd rather somebody be an independent than a Republican, but I also don't think that any voter is a bad person. I think that the billionaires are bad people. I think the Republican Party politicians are bad people. I think the Republican Party mouthpieces like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro are bad people. But the people that got tricked into voting for Republicans, they are just people that got tricked, and there are definitely people on the left who got tricked into not voting or voting for Trump in 2024. So it's not like Republicans have a monopoly on getting conned. But there's a lot of people that are getting tricked on the reg because of social media. Mercy says we should have more politicians with I don't know if that's a great thing. Thank you for blocking that one, Rena. You're doing the Lord's work. Diego Vargas says, what do you think of the farmers now regretting their vote? I have a lot of sympathy for them. I think that they were tricked into thinking that Trump was going to take care of them, and even though it seems obvious to you and me that he was never going to, they fell for it, and now it is incumbent upon us to give them what some activists call the golden retreat, meaning we are not going to laugh in their faces and wave our fingers at them and say, this is your fucking fault. We're going to say, you know what? You and lots of other people got tricked. But let's work together to stop this fucking shit, because I don't want you to lose your farm the same way that I'm sure that you don't want me to, fucking get disappeared to a concentration camp in El Salvador, Master of Liberty, good to see you again. How's your day been? It's been pretty good. I got the day off today. I took a nap. I'm watching Andor. I'm gonna watch some movies today and get some Chipotle delivered to the hotel. I'm fucking hype as hell about it, man. I'm glad you like the book, Tyro. That gives me puts a smile on my face. All right, scrolling down to the bottom. Malcolm Miner says, "What is your opinion on the Israel and Hamas issue, and should we allow Israel to bomb the Gaza Strip?" So, no, we should not allow Israel to bomb the Gaza Strip. Diego Vargas, do you live in California? Yes, I do. But let me be very clear about the Israel-Hamas issue, since we're on the topic, Malcolm Miner. The governing bodies of both Palestine and Israel, I consider to be bad faith actors, because they are both guilty of committing war crimes against their respective enemy populations. It is not the fault of the population of Israel or Palestine that they are being led by people that are doing war crimes. They got tricked the same way that a lot of people in America got tricked into voting for Republicans and Donald Trump. So while we cannot tell those people who to vote for and who to be led by, we can at least not send money and weapons to governments that are doing war crimes, which is already a law that we have on our books. We are currently breaking that law ourselves by continuing to send money and weapons to the Netanyahu government. But I am for the populations of both of those countries. I believe that the people living in Israel and the people living in Palestine should have the life and should have the liberty to just live their fucking lives and pursue life, liberty, and happiness at their leisure, without fear of getting fucking murdered by the either Hamas or the Netanyahu government. LFJ says, "How can Democrats attract more college-age white males? Do you have a Charlie Kirk?" Well, I don't want Democrats to have a Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk's a fucking liar. I would much rather talk to people using facts as opposed to just making shit up and being a fucking, sneaky, like using sneaky debate tricks to convince people of the bullshit that you're peddling. But I know that there are a lot of progressive content creators who are popping up on college campuses and talking to students, and I'm excited about that. I'm happy about that. If anybody wants me to go to their college, just let me know, and I'll fucking just talk to your like, what do you call it, your events coordinator, and about bringing me out, and I'll fucking go. I'm cool with talking to people. That's what I'm fucking doing here, Let's see here. Jewelry says, "No tricks, just free speech, buddy." That is not a question. So you are out of here. I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but just ask a question. Master Liberty says, "Oh, and I never did get to ask you, how did you plan on getting past the unamendable section of the Constitution at the end of Article 5, specifically regarding your plan to abolish the Senate due to equal suffrage clause? I am interested in hearing how you would go about it." I mean, you just need to vote for politicians who are down with having a constitutional convention to get rid of the Senate. And while that is, logistically basically impossible, it is definitely possible in the, there's a 0.0001% chance of that happening. I don't think that dissolving the Senate is like a 5-year project. I think it's maybe like a 50-year project or a 100-year project or something like that. But again, I don't think that getting rid of the Senate is like 100% necessary. I think it's like, so long as we can start by just rebalancing the Senate by making like Puerto Rico a state and DC a state and shit like that. Slowgy says, "Why did highly educated people vote for Trump?" Well, just because you're highly educated does not mean that you're not susceptible to propaganda. Just because you're highly educated does not mean that you're a good person. There are a lot of very highly educated people who voted for Trump because they love the fact that he is hurting marginalized groups of people. There are people who are homophobic and racist who like what Trump is doing. There are also rich people who are highly educated who like that Trump is cutting their taxes. So yeah, there you go. Off Jack 8 says, "Why don't you like the Senate?" The Senate is fine. It's just really unbalanced. The Republican Party has a massive advantage in electing senators. It is one of many electoral advantages that the Republican Party has, where they are able to maintain around 50% political power every election cycle, despite the fact that they get significantly fewer votes than Democratic candidates because of things like gerrymandering, the Electoral College, and the Senate map. Nacho Business says, don't forget a normal people that are ecstatic that Trump is dismantling the establishment. Nacho Business, you know, telling you why that comment is inaccurate would take a lot of time and energy right now. And this is my second live stream of the day, so I don't necessarily feel like doing it. I will just say this: if your next comment is not a question, then I'm going to boot you out of here. Let's see here. I mean, like Gen Z males, since they predominantly voted for Trump. Yeah, Gen Z males were convinced by Manosphere podcasts and Joe Rogan and Andrew Schultz and those fucking idiots that Donald Trump was the better option. You know, propaganda and misinformation is a hell of a drug. Let's see here. Slowgy says, what racist things has Trump passed? You know, as far as like bills that Trump has passed, it's a little bit of a harder target, but he's done like plenty of racist things in his life. You know, let's see here. Trying to look at my list. So the Trump administration made it so that any company that the government is going to hire does not have to abide by any sort of like integration rules. So a company can be like fully racist and say, we don't hire black people above the level of janitor. And the Trump government is saying, cool, well, we'll hire you to do work for the government. There you go. There's an example of Trump doing some racist shit in the government. E.W. Ryan says, I won't survive in this room, will I? I comment often, but so long as you ask a question, E.W. Ryan, I don't care if you have different opinions than me, but actually ask a question. Oh no! Let's see here. Hate speech. I got reported for hate speech on my live. All right, appeal. Submit my appeal. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's see here. Okay. Well, it looks like I am just on. Let's see here. It looks like I am just on Twitch and YouTube for the time being. So let's see here. Thank you, the person from Israel who said, I like your stuff. I like you too. I cannot read your username for obvious reasons. Master Liberty says, well, it does require a unanimous vote among all states, so that is a bit hard. So would you advocate for full campaigns in all 50 states to get Democratic state legislators and senates in order to nullify the equal suffrage clause? I do think there is work around that would technically work under the Miller precedent. Master Liberty, a lot of the things that you were saying are you clearly have a mastery of constitutional law and American history that I do not possess. So I can only talk about this in, much more bird's eye view perspective. I have much stronger policy, ideas that I think take precedence as than, dissolving the Senate or, dissolving the Senate is not a project that I think we should be voting in the 2026 midterms about. I think it is much more important to balance the playing field. So like passing things like the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which would nullify the partisan gerrymandering that the Republican Party does. It would nullify the voter suppression that the Republican Party does. Statehood for DC and Puerto Rico, I believe we would just need majorities and a filibuster proof in the Senate in order to pass that. But yeah, we can do other things to help even the playing field, but also just to make this country better for everyday Americans, like making corruption, harder to do as opposed to easier to do, making it less legal as opposed to more legal, which is what the Republican Party is currently doing. The Mighty Pickle, good to see you. Thank you for being here. I am answering questions about politics. So if you got any questions about politics, let me know. Let's see here. I'm still waiting to see if my appeal was approved. Fantastic. All right. How long have I been going for? 48 minutes. All right, I'm going to pop back onto my live on TikTok for a little bit. Just to let everybody know the good news that the trolls failed, How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. I'm here answering questions about politics. So if you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you don't know too much about it. So I like to come on here and give people the straight information about politics in a way where they don't have to feel worried or, ashamed. Nobody's going to yell at you for your political beliefs. Nobody's going to, call you a MAGA fascist. No one's going to call you a cuck libtard. I'm just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can be like trying to learn a new language because there's all these three-letter agencies that people refer to, like the NLRB or the FTC or the FEC. And if you don't know what those agencies are, or you don't know what they do, it can be really difficult to be a part of that conversation, and sometimes we just refer to people by their last name. Like if you don't know who Kinzinger is, or Cheney, or Hawley, or Boebert, it can be a little bit hard to follow these conversations about politics, and we also talk about these things that happen in politics, like the filibuster, or continuing resolutions, or the reconciliation, shit like that. And if you don't know what those things are, it can be really difficult to be part of the conversation, And so I like to make myself available to answer people's good faith questions about politics in a way that where I'm not gonna roast you. I'm not gonna debate you. This is not one of those shows where I bring people who are Republicans onto the live stream and I yell at them and I tell them that they're stupid and stuff like that. I don't care who you voted for. I just want to answer your questions about politics so that we have more of an understanding. I think people have an inaccurate view of what Democrats are like, the same way that I think people have an inaccurate view of what the Democratic Party is like. And so, I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Let's see here. This person said, Trump is amazing. How much more amazing can he make America? That's the kind of question that gets you blocked. I do not care if you have different opinions than me, but actually be part of the conversation. Let's see here. Do you think proper representation is required for political movements, or should we just go with whoever we have? I'm not 100% sure what you're asking there, Tyro, but I will say this. I do not believe that we need our politicians to mirror, or our political parties to mirror our beliefs perfectly. It has to be like taking the bus. You just try to get as close as humanly possible and vote for that. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Welcome back, everybody. My stream was reported for hate speech, which is something that right-wing people like to do to me because I tell the truth on TikTok. And so I appealed the decision. I won the appeal because I was not doing hate speech. So now I'm back. All right, let's scroll down through these comments. American Flag says, thoughts on the Federal Reserve. I don't really have all that many, intelligent or cogent arguments about the Federal Reserve, either for or against. Let's see here. Bucksnort says, what is the best political case scenario? I think Democrats being in charge of everything is the best case scenario. Some people will argue that a unified government in one party government is a bad thing, but the Democratic Party is not a one party. It is the centrist wing. It is the progressive wing. It is the LGBTQ coalition. It is the African American coalition. It is the the Latino coalition. It is the female coalition. It is the working class coalition. So yeah, all of those parties are constantly working, together and sometimes against each other in the Democratic Party. So it would still be a shared balance of power, even if it was just Democrats in elected office. Let's see here. Tommy says, what about whites? There are whites in the Democratic Party, but the majority of whites tend to vote for Republicans. Teja Love says, so ordinary government spending is bad. No, it's not, Teja, but that's not what the Republicans are doing right now. What the Republicans are doing is shutting down organizations that help the 99% because they want to hurt the 99%. When they hurt the 99%, it gives more money and power to the billionaire class, and the Republican Party is working with the billionaire class in order to solidify their fortunes and footholds in positions of power. Alrighty, let's see here. Chubby Surf says, will Trump make America great again? He didn't his first term, and he hasn't so far. Xavier says, what do you agree with Trump on? Basically nothing. Mr. Gihita says, forget everything about politics. What's your favorite homemade fried chicken recipe? I do not have one. Let's see here. What about Mike Pence? Why doesn't Mike Pence support Donald Trump? I don't like Mike Pence at all, but he does at least have a little bit of integrity as a religious person, and he recognizes that Donald Trump is the antithesis of what a good Christian should be. Marco Beltram says, Teja says, so no corrupt politicians. No, there are. They're just mostly Republicans. David says, do you know they're going to release the P. Diddy tapes with Epstein and Trump? Probably not. Marco Beltram says, how we can stop weapons trafficking into Mexico. I mean, I think the best thing that we can do is have stronger gun control legislation here in America. You know, gun licenses, gun insurance, closing the gun show loophole, mandatory background checks, things like that. Did you try? Says, are you captured intellectually? I don't believe so. Sid says, what side are you on? I am on the side of the 99%. I am on the side of the working class and the middle class and the poor. I am on the side of marginalized communities, poor neighborhoods. People shouldn't have fucking poison in their drinking water. People should have their fucking their meat and their foods inspected by the FDA. We should not be dismantling government programs that help the 99% just because some billionaires want to get richer. Trip Sitter says, did you vote for Obama? I sure did, twice. Nicholas Machiavello says, Democrats. That's not a question. Let's see here. The Second Amendment didn't say anything about background checks or insurance, etc. Well, the Second Amendment also doesn't say anything about bump stocks or fucking grenades or nuclear weapons or tanks, because those things did not exist at the time of the Second Amendment. Neutron Star Boulevard. I do not want to get into a fight about gun control. That is what I believe. If you have a question about it, I will answer it, but I'm not here to debate people who their only objective is just forwarding the gun lobby's policy, priorities. Mike Terror 8 says, when are you coming out right now? I'm coming out right now, everybody. I have been having sex with Mike Terror's mom. I apologize that I had to come out with that information here on this live stream, but Mike just forced it out of me. Tell your mom I said hi, Mike, and tell her that I'll see her tonight. All right. David Valdivia says, Bernie Sanders for president. I like Bernie Sanders a lot, but he is pretty fucking old, so maybe the dude needs to stand aside. Neutron Star Boulevard says, brother, I didn't say we should own nukes, LOL, just a little revolver or something. All right, well, you made a point about something not being in the Second Amendment. I made a point about something not being in the Second Amendment. Do you not see how my argument was analogous to your argument? Neutron Star Boulevard. Trip Sitter says, is there any real waste you agree with Doge has found? So 99% of the things that Doge is reporting are either wildly overblown, like they say they're saving 10 billion when it's actually like 1 million, or it is a lie. Like they said that there were studies for like turning mice transgender or something. That was a lie. Condoms for Hamas. That was a lie. So yeah, Doge was talking about getting rid of the penny, and I support that, but I haven't actually seen them do that. All I've seen them do is try to kneecap agencies that are currently investigating Elon Musk companies. And all I've seen them do is dismantling government organizations that fucking help people. This is just some things that I saw today. They have cut funding for health and safety programs for firefighters. They have cut safety regulations for self-driving cars. That helps Elon Musk. They have withdrawn plans to limit salmonella levels in our poultry because the FDA is suffering from staffing shortages because Doge keeps on firing people. They are challenging credit equality protections. You know those laws that say that you're not allowed to ask a woman to have a male cosigner when she wants a credit card? They're challenging that rule. They have gutted Meals on Wheels and other programs for the elderly. The Department of Justice is dropping cases against corporations that funded Trump's inauguration. That's just some fucking straight grift right there. Let's see here. Medication development is slowing down because of cuts that the Doge administration has done. The Doge administration made so many cuts to the FDA that they weren't able to report on an E. coli outbreak that just happened a couple of weeks ago. Let's see here. Trump exempted 70 coal plants from air pollution rules. So we're all going to be breathing in more lead and mercury and other fucking poisonous heavy metals because Trump likes coal magnates put money in his pocket and shit like that. They also dismantled the office that counters foreign disinformation. Why would you want to do that? Why would you not want to counter foreign disinformation? Is it because it helps you get elected, Republicans? So there you go, guys. There you go. Buddy Rich says, what do you wish would change about the Democratic Party? I'm not really, what do you call it? I am not dogmatic about changes that the Democratic Party needs to make. I am dogmatic about the calling out the fact that the Democrats have been playing a game that is rigged against them. So people have this have inaccurate views of the Democratic Party, in my opinion, and it is wholly because they are playing a game that is rigged against them. The media environment has been weaponized against them, and I'm trying to get people to recognize that. Let's see here. It's the Rocketeer says, but will you vote for Obama a third time? I mean, if the law is changed and it's Trump versus Obama, then absolutely I'll vote for Obama again. Buddy Rich says, sounds like you're being paid. I mean, I'm being paid by the people on my Patreon, of which I think there's 4. I'm being paid by the subscribers that I have here on Twitch, of which I think there are 5. So yeah, I think I'm making like $50 a month from doing this live stream, but it's just from people that like me a lot. I'm not getting paid by the DNC or MSNBC or any shit like that. Yes, Starbles, they do think everyone with an opposing opinion is being paid. Just because says Democrats cry they've controlled most of the last 4 decades and failed. That is inaccurate, just because. First of all, it's not a question, so ask a question or you're going to get booted. Also, the Democratic Party has not been in full government control for the last 4 decades. If anything, the doctrine of the Republican Party has been in control. Because they have had the majority of seats in state legislatures. They have had the majority of seats in Congress. And it's been a pretty equal split since the Reagan administration as far as like years that we've had Democratic presidents versus Republican presidents. Let's see here. Damien, are you Republican or Democrat? I am a Democrat. Let's see here. Gary Man says, did you say the media was for Republicans? It is. And I understand that that is a controversial thing to say, but the data bears it out. There were way more negative stories about Al Gore and Hillary Clinton, and that doesn't make any sense because they were, they were not as bad candidates as their alternatives. You can read this. This has been well documented that the mainstream media has a tendency to try to report more negative stories around Democrats in order to seem unbiased. They have a tendency to water down stories about Republicans because they want to seem as unbiased as humanly possible. So yeah, the mainstream media on the whole does the work of the Republican Party. Alrighty, let's see here. Humor 3 Knots says, why does the Republicans always love owning the libs but practice neoliberalism? I don't know. I mean, I would say that the information environment has incentivized a sort of own the libs type of culture war. But as far as like Republicans being neoliberal, I don't know if I would buy that. Jimmy Henson says it's ignorant thing to say. What's ignorant thing to say? Karen Harding says, how do we change the way we deliver our message without loss? We got to do it in person. Karen Harding, we got to do it in person. That's the only way that we can fight back against the billionaires weaponizing the social media narratives against us. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Darbles, owning the lib, why can't they get their own vocabulary? Oh my God. Jason Ader says, how can MSM be Republican if they had the Nothing Burger? So first of all, Jason Ader, the Nothing Burger was not a Nothing Burger. The quote-unquote Russia hoax was proven accurate in the Mueller report, but people did not read the Mueller report. People saw what Bill Barr, Trump's attorney general, put out about the Mueller report, and they believed that, even though it was wildly inaccurate. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, I'm going to repeat myself and just say that the mainstream media has an incentive to appear unbiased, and so they hype up negative stories around Democrats, and they downplay negative stories around Republicans. There you go. Alrighty, let's see here. Scrolling down to the bottom. King Killer Studios says Mueller report was not inaccurate. No, the Mueller report was accurate. The Mueller report was accurate. Bill Barr's summation of the Mueller report was inaccurate. King Killer Studios. That is what I'm saying. Do you not agree with that? So again, I'm going to repeat that. The Mueller report was accurate. The way that Bill Barr summarized the Mueller report was inaccurate. Hard Truth USA says, why are Democrats deranged and evil? We are not. I guess a better question is, why are you blocked? Alrighty, let's see here. Mustang says, you're a bottom, right? I mean, your mom's usually on top of me. So I guess I'm a bottom in that case. When your mom is always doing cowgirl and reverse cowgirl on me, speaking of cowgirl, I guess she's a top and I'm a bottom, I guess. Let's see here. Jason Ader says, would you say mainstream media is still Republican during the Trump era? Absolutely. You forget that these are organizations that are owned by extremely rich people, so they are incentivized to have at the very least, gridlocked government, and at the very best, a Republican-controlled government, so that they can skirt regulations and shit like that. There are certain media organizations that are still reporting accurately against the Trump administration. The Trump administration is going after them hard. But yeah, taken on a whole, the media is much more centrist than it is Democrat. And when Democrats are in office, it is much more Republican than it is centrist. Alrighty, let's see here. Middick Court says, why won't rich donors support Medicare for all since they hate providing health insurance to employees? So rich donors want people to be poor and desperate. They want to be able to abuse you at your job because you have no other options. They want you to look at your job as the only way that you can get health insurance. They want you to not be able to save money because when maybe you save up enough money that you can start looking for a better job and take some time off at your current job and shit like that. The billionaire class wants you desperate and struggling to survive so that you can't ever challenge their position either, fiscally or, with governmental power and shit like that. Let's see here. Josh Morrissey says, who are the billionaire class? The billionaires, that's who. There's over 1,000 of them just in America alone. Michelle Haley says, Trump draws ratings in the same way a train wreck causes rubbernecking. Accurate. Mustang says, what does the number 69 mean to you? It means that your mom's at my door. Yes, King, slay those politics down. You're giving pure... Thank you. All right. Remember how the tables turned during COVID. I don't know what you mean with that. You sir need more coffee. Good to see you again. Why did those judges get arrested in Arizona? Were they harboring MS-13? So they were not harboring MS-13. I don't know all of the details yet. I have only read one article about this. I'm waiting for the legal scholars of the Strict Scrutiny podcast, who are much smarter than I am, to give me a full breakdown of what happened. But from what I can tell, from what I read so far, that the judges were legally helping people who were being threatened by ICE escape ICE. Right now, we know there's been a ton of reporting. ICE has been detaining people illegally, people who have done nothing wrong. They have deported people illegally who have done nothing wrong. They have sent people to a concentration camp in El Salvador illegally. And, the Trump administration, even though they admitted that some of those people were sent there in error, they have not done anything to bring them back. And so I think these judges were accurately assessing the situation that a person who they know from, being in their courtroom has done nothing wrong, that they should do everything they can to get that person away from ICE, which is acting like a rogue agency right now. Now, could the FBI make an argument that they were obstructing justice by trying to get those immigrants away from ICE? That's the argument that they're currently making. But the fact of the matter is that they did not have to arrest those judges. They could have indicted them and just, had this play out in the court of law. Instead, they sent the FBI down to them and put them in handcuffs, which is an intimidation tactic. It's some fucking fascist Nazi bullshit. We should all be furious and terrified and activated because of it. Prudence Moon says, which podcast did you mention? Something Scrutiny. It's called Strict Scrutiny. Leah Lippman, Melissa Murray, and Kate Shaw, 3 extremely intelligent legal scholars and teachers who are fucking on point 24/7. Check them out every week. Most Republicans MAGA have never heard any of this information, so it's all new to them. Rocky, they have deported U.S. citizens. Completely accurate. All of that is accurate. Do you think protecting borders is a valid political goal? I do, but the fact of the matter is, we have poured a ton of money into protecting our borders. But it's putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg. What we need to be doing is addressing the root causes of immigration and helping other nations to be places that people don't want to leave. But additionally, immigrants are a net positive on our culture. So people that are aggressively anti-immigrant, I feel like, do not have an accurate view of the benefit of immigrants in this country. There is I think, a very cogent argument that you could make that a lot of that is, born of racism and shit like that, and xenophobia. But some people just got lied to about what immigrants do for our country and in our country. Alrighty, let's see here. This is my second live stream of the day, everybody. We are at an hour and 10 minutes. I successfully won my appeal. I came back. The haters tried to hate, and I came back, everybody. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your questions. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for your gifts. Thank you for your likes, your shares. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind, like the comments and the likes and the shares. You can support me financially if you like. You don't have to, but you can. The avenues are there. I have a Patreon. You can subscribe. You can buy things at my store on my website, jaredbernstein.com. And you can send gifts on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and shit like that. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, you can hit me up. My DMs are open, and you can email me through my website as well. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, but I am currently on the road. I'm going to be on the road for the next 2 weeks, everybody, doing stand-up all across this great nation. And so my streaming schedule is going to be much more sporadic, so you just kind of have to find me when you find me, y'all. But I hope that I was able to get this message out to a bunch of people. I hope that y'all are going to be doing the work, because when we all do the work, then nobody has to do the work all by themselves. And the in-person work, is the only way that we can fight against the misinformation of the billionaire class and the Republican Party. All right, everybody, have an excellent Saturday. I'll see you when I see you. Take care of each other, take care of yourselves, be good, and yeah, I'll see you when I see you, everybody. Bye-bye, 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 bye-bye. Goodbye.